When I was a kid, I remember running around in my front yard with my best friend that lived across the street and my brother. And we would always have something to do. We were always exploring the neighborhood and doing crazy things all the time. I remember we used to play with Nerf guns and we'd shoot at each other and chase each other around, and we'd try to be like soldiers and hide inside of the grass and surprise each other and sneak attack each other. Or we'd just be in the front yard playing football, throwing the ball around, running, just doing what kids do. And sometimes we'd be doing really stupid things like jumping fences and getting in trouble, but honestly, those are things that just kids do. And so this is a childhood that I don't see being lived anymore. There is an absence of literally people and kids being out in the streets playing in, like, living life, exploring the world and living life. Childhood doesn't exist anymore. There's no such thing as being a kid anymore. Kids are growing up with phones in their hands, tablets in their hands. Their energy is being siphoned onto these distractions. And as a result, kids don't want to go outside anymore. Literally, they don't want to play outside anymore like they used to. I remember on my street, there was at least 10 to 15 kids that we could play with at any given moment, at any given time. And now I see 0 kids playing outside, 0. And I go down streets, and even on Christmas, like those days, those holidays, I don't see kids outside playing because they're too busy playing video games and looking at distractions, and it's not their fault. It's not the kids' fault. When we give them hyper-stimulating things like TikTok scrolling, YouTube, Instagram, right? When we give them things like that, when we give them hyper-addictive video games as kids, when they're still super sensitive to the world and new to the world, what do you think they're gonna do all day? Do you think that they're going to go outside and like explore the world, or you think they're gonna do what's easy, sitting inside playing the video games? And we seem to think that kids have more self-control than adults. We seem like they're going to develop it over time. The thing is, we have adults that have been doing these things for years and they still don't have the self-control to quit because these are addictions, and we're giving our kids addictions to distractions. From an early age, we're giving our kids distractions. Think about how this is going to affect their mental health already. Since 2009, mental health has been declining steadily amongst teens and kids because of this exact reason. It's been proven that as we expose ourselves more and more to highly stimulating activities like video games and phones and things like that, as we expose ourselves more to those things, the lower our baseline dopamine levels. What do I mean by that? I have a full video that I explain how dopamine works and how stimulating activities are going to decrease the baseline. And so if you want to watch that, I'm going to put it in the description because I go into pretty specific detail onto how dopamine works. And so the thing is, as we expose ourselves to those highly stimulating activities, the lower our baseline dopamine goes. What does that mean for us though? Here's the thing. There's research that suggests that dopamine levels and happiness levels are correlated with each other. And it makes complete sense because dopamine is being released 24/7, right? Whenever we do an activity that we enjoy, dopamine increases. And so that's like the pleasure chemical. And so our dopamine baseline is correlated to our overall feelings of happiness. This means that as dopamine lowers, the less happier we are sitting in an empty room, the less our baseline is. Which means that now we're required to do things to make us happy. Now we're required and become dependent on highly stimulating activities in order to feel just good, just to feel normal. This means that whenever we don't have those things, we feel depressed, we feel sad. And so think about it. You're exposing your kid to highly stimulating activities all the time. And guess what? His dopamine levels are gonna decline over time due to high exposure to those things, those highly stimulating activities, which means that his happiness levels are going to decline. What does that mean? Increased mental health issues within these new generations. And we already see it happening. We can see it happening already. Sometimes I think I'm just the only crazy guy who's telling the truth here, because if you look at the research, this is what's happening. And it's crazy to think that we haven't done this research on ourselves because it's blatantly obvious. People keep looking for things to blame when it comes to mental health issues within this generation, and it's so obvious. We're simply being exposed to too much stimulation. And so when we're exposed to that stimulation, everything else seems boring. And when everything else seems boring, when sitting in a room seems boring, and I need that stimulation to feel good, and I don't have it, I'm going to feel depressed. That's just how it works. And so think about how messed up it is for kids to be exposed to these things. And so the thing is, we keep doing it over and over again. There's no such thing as childhood anymore. All there is dopamine and more stimulation. Kids don't go outside anymore. And you can probably see it too. And so things are just gonna keep getting worse and worse unless someone addresses this problem. And that's why I'm here. You know what I'm saying has truth to it. And so if you wanna start the change to this generation, scroll down right now, help me get this message out, and subscribe to my channel. This is becoming an epidemic, not only in the US, but across the entire world. Something needs to be done, and I'm here to start that thing. My name's Justin, and remember, you deserve the consequences of your actions.